You're listening to The Safety and the Sportswriter on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Sometime I'll get that segue perfectly right. But good evening, everybody. We are here at the Safety and the Sportswriter show with Knoxville, Nate, and Big Joe as we get ready to talk to you about the world of sports. A lot of NBA, a lot of NFL going on tonight, even some MLB we'll make some time for. A lot going on. But first, before we get started, I'd like to send a shout out to Hector Santiago of the Seattle Mariners for being the first pitcher dumb enough to get caught cheating since they put on this check you and frisk you when you come off the mound. They caught somebody, so I guess it's all worthwhile, and it proves cheating was going on.
I don't know. You'd think that even if you were cheating, you would stop after the strip searches began. What do you think? They weren't going to search him? I mean, I don't. They've been searching everybody, sometimes multiple times in the same game. So he just thought they were going to let him go. I forget, what did he have? What was he?
I don't know. They I guess they
Bardol, Vagisil.
They took his glove and they wrapped it up and they FedExed it to the home office in New York for further examination. It's like, I swear, first of all, if I was a pitcher, I'd put it in the catcher's glove. I said that before. I'll say it again. Put it in the catcher's glove. Let the catcher put it on for you.
This is what we're worried about, though. I mean, this is why baseball, no one watches it, because we're analyzing the pitcher's glove instead of like getting hits or speeding the game up.
Yeah, I mean, I'll agree with you the speeding the game portion of it, but I mean, you got to start wondering. I mean, it's been 3 starts. Garrett Cole is not pitching like he was before his use of the sticky stuff got questioned. And yesterday he got his ass pounded by the Red Sox. He didn't even make it out of the 5th inning. The first inning he gave up 2 home runs. He gave up 3 home runs. I mean, I don't know about spin ratio and everything. I don't know how you examine that throughout the game, but people say his spin ratio is down. He's pitching. You can tell he's pitching differently. So I don't know. But if nothing else, maybe he's a little tired. Maybe that's why he's just not pitching as well. But he was the poster boy when this first came out. It doesn't look good that he's now 8-4 and his ERA is rising and people are catching up on his fastball easier. So we'll see what the big thing of that was the Yankees losing 3 straight to Boston after beating Kansas City and all their fans jumping up and down and not realizing that most people beat Kansas City unless the Yankees can get sent to the Central Division. It's not going to help them any. So enough with the Yankees. We got a lot to get through, especially basketball tonight. And last night, the Bucks showed a lot of heart. They fell behind by double figures early and did not look good. And it was not the prettiest game in the world, but Chris Middleton in the last quarter just went off, couldn't miss. What did you think about the game?
I think maybe that's the way the Bucks, should do it from now on. Is have themselves come from behind, just by a few points, because when they have the lead, it seems to be when they lose. They seem to be better when they're down a little bit. They really seem to focus in the 3rd and 4th quarter and really pulled away. And I was happy to see that because I do think the Bucks are the better team. But I was very, as I mentioned on the show, I was very disappointed in game 1. So I've liked what I've seen since then. And let's be honest. I mean, I hate to put it on one guy's shoulders, but Chris Middleton's the difference. He really is. If he has a bad game, if he's 5 of 23, the Bucks aren't going to win. That's just a fact. He's the difference maker on that team. Giannis is solid. He's consistent. He's 30 and 10 every single game. They need their second. They need their Pippen to make it happen, and he certainly did last night.
One guy I was very impressed with, and I liked him. I rooted for him when he was around here. He had a real good time. He was very effective on the floor with Bobby Portis. When Giannis got the early foul trouble and wasn't playing well, he came off the bench and kind of helps them settle things down. I mean, I've always rooting for Bobby Portis. I mean, I understand why he has been on a journey throughout the NBA because he never seemed to be able to play consistently enough to establish himself where a team believes in him. But he showed last night that he's got the kind of game where if he finds a role, I mean, and having him there with the fact that Brook Lopez is showing his age and the fact he can't do it anymore, Bobby Portis is still in a big role for the Bucks.
I agree. I could not agree more. I put that on our Facebook page last night before he went off that he was very important. And then, my goodness, 17 minutes, 15 points, 4 rebounds, 2 steals, and assist. This guy was phenomenal. And he was one of the, we talked all the time about how the Knicks had, 9 power forwards. He was the one that I would have kept.
Especially over Taj Gibson.
Yeah, Taj Gibson and, Kevin Knox and, all the losers that they kept on the team, and they shipped this guy out of town. I really never got it because I liked him on the Knicks, and I like him here. I think he should have been playing more these past few games, and he was definitely a big difference last night. I mean, they were plus 17 with him on the court.
I mean, not meaning to say it would be any different, but I mean, it was Mitchell Robinson be out for so long. Him and Nerlens Noel would have been a nice combination to have down there instead of Taj Gibson. My God, it would have really helped Randall and a lot of the people out having a young Bobby Portis who has the spring in his step still and can still play the game. Would have been a nice addition to the Knicks this year. So we miss him.
A guy that can shoot from the outside. He can create his own shot. He can rebound the ball. He can defend pretty well. He's a very effective player, and I saw him play in college when he was at Arkansas, and you could see the talent was there. So maybe he'll latch on here at the Bucks because I could definitely see him taking Lopez's. He's playing. Last night he played just as much as Lopez did. So I could see him coming off and taking his spot.
He would definitely be a good running mate for Giannis. I mean, especially at his age, those two would be a nice pair to put up on any front court. So couldn't say more about that. But again, injuries come out and creep up because Trae Young goes down with an ankle injury. And how is he going to be the rest of these playoffs? I don't know. The ankle is, especially with a guy who's built on speed. I mean, he's not a leaper. He's somebody who has to be quick. He's got to be able to outquick his opponents. He's not known for his defense, which means that he's going to be even more of a liability on the defensive end. But you have no choice. There's nobody else out there that can do his role.
That's definitely true. I mean, they're in big trouble if he's not 100%. I didn't think the injury looked that bad. They're calling it a bone bruise. Not sure what that means, but I don't think it's going to be a real big affecting factor on whether or not they win the next game. I mean, obviously they're going to need him, but I see him out there. I think he's going to play, and he's a jump shooter. If he was some guy that ran down the middle of the lane and dunked it 10 times a game, I'd be worried. But this is a dude who's going to chuck threes up from wherever he's at. And if he hits them, they'll win. If he doesn't, they're not going to win. So,
but he also has been effective invading the lane at his size in the playoffs. At least this is my first time since Oklahoma of really seeing him in an elongated time, and he does drive, especially to the right, very well. And
he's got that teardrop, man. He's got that that floater for sure. That's part of his game, but I think I don't think it's a serious injury, but we've got another guy who's sitting out with a knee bruise. So who the hell knows?
You mean Kawhi?
Buddy, I felt bad for the Clippers as I'm watching this game, and I'm seeing these guys claw and fight and just give everything they've got, and then you've got this dude sitting up in the luxury box, looking down upon them, doing nothing. And I don't know, man. I mean, maybe the injury's more severe than I was led to believe. but it's just not a good look for him. And, you can't tell me that the Clippers wouldn't have won that game if Kawhi Leonard was playing.
Oh, well, yeah, of course. I mean, they're not going to give it away late like they did. I mean, but and they would at least make it more of a series than they have already. I mean, they should close out tonight. I mean, it should be over with. So, and it's going to be good to have Chris Paul get his day in the sun in the finals, anyways. So I have no problem against it. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I sit there and it's hard for me because I when it comes to injuries, you never know somebody's pain threshold. You'd love to think that everybody could gut it out. But I remember one thing, the game that everybody makes out to be the biggest thing about the Willis Reed coming out there and playing that night against the Knicks, or for the Knicks when they won the championship, he never was the same player after that game. He was never an MVP level player again. And, Durant, you see what he did a couple of years ago, and all of a sudden, the Achilles snaps. I don't know. I can see with too many examples of guys gutting it out and not being able to go on.
The first time that this guy has chosen to not play. I mean, you're forgetting when the sole reason that he essentially got let go out of San Antonio was that he was refusing to play when the Spurs doctors were saying he was ready. And he was saying, no, I'm not. And I'm not going out there. He was also in a kind of a contract dispute, but whatever. I'm just saying there's a history here of a guy who errs on the side of caution more than most. And, that's his prerogative. Maybe he's looking to extend his career. I completely understand that.
Yeah.
But it's just not a good look when your teammates are out there busting their ass and they're one guy short and you're sitting up there with a knee bruise.
Well, yeah, and it goes to the argument of leaders and leadership and everything else. And LeBron playing on one leg, Isaiah Thomas that time, even though I don't like Isaiah playing against the Lakers on one leg in the playoffs. I mean, there are guys that you become legendary for those kind of things. Unfortunately, it's that dangerous factor of I would not want to be wrong, and you can't force a guy. I mean, if his heart's not in it, if he doesn't have that kind of heart, if he's only one of these guys that say, when things are good, I can play. That's fine. What are you gonna do? You can't change him.
No, that's true. I'm just saying that this is something that's going to stick with him because this is really the only knock on him. He's a tremendous player and one of the best defenders. He's one of the best scorers in crunch time. He's a difference maker. And if he was out there, they'd be winning. But when he's not out there, it exposes Paul George and his shortcomings because this is a guy that always looks pretty good on the stat chart. But when you watch the game closely, there's sloppiness, there's turnovers, there's, sections of the game where he can't hit a shot, where, he's throwing it away. It's, there's a big difference between Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, in my opinion, and it shows up here when you're playing a really good team like the Suns.
Well, the thing is that Paul George, early in his career, everybody thought he was going to be a number one. He's really a number two.
Yeah, he is. He is, and it shows up when he's the guy that has to take it on his shoulders. And I know he played really well in the victory, but he was just trying to do too much in the last game, and it ended up hurting him. And statistically, he ends up looking decent on the stat chart with his 23 points or whatever. But when you look at his what he actually is shooting percentages and turnovers, I mean, the guy was 5 of 20 from the floor.
Yeah,
that's not going to get it done. And he was 1 of 9 from 3-point land. The only reason that he had points was
he goes to the line.
18 from the free throw line. And to be honest, 12 of 18 is not really good for somebody who shoots 85%. He wasn't even really good at free throws, and he got to shoot 20 of them. So, just not a great night for him. And I honestly expect the Suns to close it out in the next game because they're that good.
Yeah, and I'd like to see him get it done too. Just I don't want any debt. I don't want it to. This series is enough for me right now. I'll find my entertainment in the Bucks Hawks series from now on. Speaking of number 2 guys who are whacking out, Scottie Pippen. What is it? Does the guy just? I think he wants to become famous again. I think he thinks that people have not been paying attention to him, so he's got to come out and say something every day controversial and maybe crazy. And I know he's got a book coming out, so maybe that's part of it, trying to push the limit and get things going with his book. But I mean, to bring up maybe the worst moment of his career and say that Phil Jackson was a racist for choosing Kukoc to take that shot over him at the end of a game. Phil Jackson's many things, and you know me, I'm not a Phil Jackson guy. I mean, he's an egotist. He's a self-promoter to the extreme. I think he's overrated as a coach per se. I mean, I would have loved to seen him go and build a team from the beginning so I could respect him for it. He's a loudmouth in a lot of cases, but he's not a racist. There's no way you can say he's a racist.
Yeah, I didn't see that comment, but I did see him fighting with Kevin Durant, and that particular part of it, it just seemed to me like the sensitivity running amok for old Kevin Durant again. I mean, if anybody says anything about him on Twitter, the guy gets his PR team to start firing shots back off the bow. It's like he wasn't even criticizing him. And it's like, oh, weren't you the one that refused to go back in the game? And, he gets all defensive. And it's like, dude, come on. He wasn't even – he was just saying, that LeBron has found ways to win, which he has, and get his team to the finals. And Kevin Durant, anytime anyone criticizes anything he does, he whines like a middle school boy. So –
I mean, and the thing about KD to get you is even when he was back, since he's been in Texas, he's been among the most celebrated players in the world. I mean, he walked in the number 1 overall choice. Yeah, all those times down in Oklahoma City, he never really took the brunt of the fact that they didn't make it. He went up. He took a little bit of flack when he went up to join Golden State to get his rings, but for the most part, he doesn't really know what it's like to have critics go after you. I mean, I've never heard anybody really go after him and call him a fraud or anything. And it'd be hard to call him a fraud. I mean, he does measure up on most cases. But, I mean, I've never heard anybody really, take him to task. And it just drives me crazy that they sit there and like you said, he has his team trolling the Twitter world for reasons for him to be PO'd.
Yeah, and Scottie wasn't lying about it. He all he said was that LeBron would have figured out how to beat him, and he wouldn't have been so exhausted at the end that he couldn't hit the goal. And history has proven that LeBron does find a way to win. And this year he did not. But let's be honest, he wasn't really out there on full strength.
Well, I mean,
We're watching the Lakers. AD was hurt and LeBron was hurt. AD chose not to play. LeBron stayed out there, but you could tell he wasn't 100%. The guy, did not have the athletic ability that you see at all times. And, part of that might be he's getting older, but I think a lot of it was he still didn't feel real comfortable on that ankle. Well,
the thing is that LeBron's got a resume. He doesn't have to prove anything to anybody. I mean, he doesn't really. I mean, it's only LeBron's up in that Tom Brady stratosphere of you can say you don't like him, you can say whatever, but when the rings speak for themselves, I mean, what are you going to say about the guy?
I agree with you, but there's a lot of people that think otherwise and that take shots at LeBron at every point. And people that really know basketball, like Scottie Pippen, they know what's up.
It's like I saw on Facebook today. Someone said Greatest shooter of all time, Durant. Greatest, it was like greatest shooter of all time, Kevin Durant. Greatest competitor of all time, no, Michael Jordan. It was Michael Jordan, LeBron, and the last thing they had to throw in was Kobe and say he was the hardest worker of all time. And I was like, first of all, how do you prove that? I mean, the great basketball stars. I remember people talking about Bird and Magic, how many hours they put in the gym. I mean, all these stars put in hard work in the gym, especially the guys who turn out to be superstars. So it's these stupid, inane discussions that bring sports talk down to ridiculous nature or a ridiculous level. There was an NBA team I saw on Facebook the other night where they had Shaq and Russell. No, it was Akeem and Russell with Magic, Bird, and Michael Jordan. Now, nothing against that all-time team, whoever it was for, but you put two centers. You couldn't find one power forward, maybe a Tim Duncan, maybe a Karl Malone, maybe LeBron to put in there as your power forward. Instead, you had to take a center and move to the center. I mean, it's just these inane conversations that get me going crazy about that. And that's why the Hall of Fame drives me crazy. That's why All-Star games drive me crazy. And, we're going to come up and talk. I'm going to talk to you in a few minutes about the Major League Baseball. It's still bugging me about this Mike Trout issue on how he's being voted in and has not played in 4 weeks and is not going to play for another 4 weeks. When I looked it up, there's 4 center fielders in the American League: Cedric Mullins, Adolis Garcia, Ramon Laureano, and Randall Grichuk, who should be on the All-Star. They've got All-Star level stats. And at least 2 of them, if not 3, are going to stay home. But that's not the outrage that we're worried about. We're worried about other things. But, the other thing I wanted to talk about before we get to the NFL is it's getting a lot of flack, is the USA basketball roster. We started talking about before we came on the air. Both of us have similar feelings about this. The one that everybody's harping on is Kevin Love, and I'm not going to defend and think Kevin Love should be on there. But there's a few on here that I question, including Draymond Green, Zach LaVine. I mean, even Kevin Durant, with all his having to load management, and now he's able to play for the summer.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's a great idea for him, honestly, considering how many minutes he was having to play at the end of the playoffs there against the Bucks. I mean, he was playing the entire game, and obviously that's a lot of stress to put on him. And maybe he's not going to play that much. I don't know, but they're kind of labeling this as Kevin Durant's team, so I would seem to think that he would be out there. But you've got Drew Holiday, who's still playing. You've got Chris Middleton, who's still playing, and you've got Devin Booker, who is still playing. So you got to wonder, when are those guys, when they get done, how quickly are they going to jump into the Olympic fray? And, will those dudes need to be replaced if one of those teams ends up winning the championship? They may want some time off.
I think they should. And, and people we're talking about, John Morant, Zion Williamson, your superstars of the future. Yeah, I understand that we take real pride in this team. This is probably the team that we send over to the Olympics with the most attention since we got screwed in 1972. Ever since that day and the time we lost with John Thompson was the coach in '88, we take it personally. That's why we have to send our greatest players over there to make sure that we win. For years I said, send Coach K and the best rookies and you could probably win. So, I never saw the reason to constantly send the Carmelo Anthonys, LeBron. If they want to go and be on a team once, I respect that. I was happy, especially in 1992. I was happy that Bird and Magic got to wear a gold medal because they unfortunately, the way they went through college, the Olympics weren't there for them when they graduated. But, as far as, guys going and winning multiple medals and playing when they're 30 and things like that, give it to the younger guys. Give them a chance. Let them. I want to see John Morant and Zion playing together.
Well, Zion's definitely a lot better player than Kevin Love is right now. I mean, let's be honest. Kevin Love averaged like 12 points a game.
He was a lot better when Kevin Love was great.
Yeah, it's true. And Kevin Love's had a lot of back problems and injuries throughout the last few years. This season, he only played in 25 games. And this is a guy you're sending to the Olympics. I mean, I rarely agree with Jalen Rose, but I gotta be right with him on this one. Kevin Love shouldn't be on this team, and a younger guy like Zion, who didn't even make the playoffs, he's sitting at home ready to play some basketball. He would love this opportunity. And you're telling me some guy that can start the All-Star game can't play in the Olympics? Give me a break.
Worse yet, we're agreeing with Dick Vitale. Ouch.
Yeah, but, I'll never admit to that.
But I mean, Kevin Love. Nothing against Kevin Love. Kevin Love has gotten all the rewards he deserves from the NBA. Okay, Kevin Love came in as a highly touted power forward and has had an average to good career. Nothing great. He never put a team. He contributed when Cleveland won their championship. He's had some very good years.
Well, he had his big years when he was on the Timberwolves, and those teams weren't very good, but he had some tremendous seasons. I mean, he averaged 26 a game in 2011-12. He averaged 26 a game in 13-14. I mean, you average 26 points a game in a season. That's pretty stellar. But those teams never did anything.
Exactly. When you're the only one out there and you're taking the shots and there's nothing on the line, yeah, it's nice. It's nice. But, he's not a generational player. He's not one of the better players in the NBA. He's a borderline all-star in his best years. I mean, he's not the price of admission. And there's no reason. There's what I'm trying to get to is I don't see a reason you have to throw this out there to, for lack of a better term, reward him for something.
Yeah, I'm not really sure on the purpose of him on this team. What's he going to do? He couldn't even play in the regular season for the Cavs. So what's he going to do on this team? I guess he's a veteran. I don't know. I mean, I don't really get it. But, he was on that championship team for the Cavs, so maybe they're looking for him to steady the ship. I have no idea. But if I was picking the squad, I would have picked Zion Williamson over this dude any day.
Well, and the other thing is, too, and just more to your point, Chris Middleton, Devin Booker, 4 or 5 guys that may not have the legs to get beyond this team. So therefore, if Durant is under his usual time management, you're going to need Kevin Love to be the Kevin Love of the 26 point per Timberwolves days, picking up a lot of the slack rather than just an afterthought. You know what I mean?
Well, Draymond Green's not a spring chicken either.
Right.
So you're talking about the guys down low that you've got, Kevin Love, Draymond Green, and Bam Adebayo. I mean, Draymond and Kevin Love, I don't know how much time you want them out on the court. And, that leaves Bam. So I would definitely want somebody else down low that could help this team out and log some big minutes. But, we'll see what happens. They feel like they've got enough talent on this roster to win it all. I would say they do, but I'm not sure about the makeup.
I'm not sure, especially with the fact that they don't have a true point guard out there to kind of lead the pack out there. And the other thing, as much as I respect Popovich and I like Kerr too, sometimes these coaches over in Europe aren't exactly idiots, and if they got the right team, you might be in a lot of trouble. And on any given night, as Chuck Daly told the dream team, you could lose. So
Yeah, I like Damian Lillard as the point guard. I mean, I don't have a problem with him. This is a guy that's a shoot first point guard, but that's the way the game is played these days. So I don't have an issue with him. But I just feel like overall the team lacks youth and it lacks talent that exists in this league. I mean, just some of the guys,
athleticism,
Morant, Zion. I mean, there's a lot of young players that are out there that you could have plucked and put on this roster that would have been more attractive to the viewer, first off, and secondly, I think better aligned to help them win.
Well, yeah, and I didn't look. I said they went through a list of 57 players supposedly, and this is the best they came up with. So I don't know. I'd like to look at that list. I didn't get a chance. Maybe I'll look at it later. Maybe write something on it or whatever. But it was. Well, and
we'll see what happens, but apparently the United States is 75% favorite. They're negative 305 in the odds to win this thing. So I guess they feel like there's really nobody that's going to beat them. Spain and Serbia are the two teams that are probably have the second best chances to win. And do I think that either of those teams are strong enough to beat them? Not every night, but like you said, they could go out and knock them off in one game.
All right. Well, here's a couple of the guys that were okay. Jared Allen, they chose not to pick. Eric Gordon, Blake Griffin, I agree with. Julius Randle, they're leaving him home.
Yeah,
Julius
Randle would have been my next guy. Julius Randle, John Morant, Zion. Those are the three I would definitely have on this team.
Mitchell Robinson was out most of the year. Doesn't believe it belong there. Fred VanVleet, Zion, of course. Trae Young, we don't. Well, he's playing, so we're not worried. We don't want him to play. Some of the other people here that they decided not to bring in. Jimmy Butler, who you picked up. Mike Conley, he's a little old for this team. Steph Curry. Yeah. Anthony Davis, DeRozan, Andre Drummond, a big guy there. Could have helped out maybe.
Loving everybody on that list, but there's definitely talented guys like Julius Randle and Zion that could have helped this team. But I think they're probably feeling pretty set with their roster because, I mean, which team's going to knock them off? I mean, I don't see another team on this list. France, Australia, Lithuania, Argentina. I mean, those are all teams that have a couple of decent professional basketball players on them, but they don't have this kind of talent amassed.
We'll see. I got a bad feeling about it. We'll see who's right, but I have a bad feeling about this team. I just do. But we'll see. Anyways, we wanted to get to a little football today. I'm going to let you take over with this. The quarterbacks who in the NFL are going to be competing for time and number one spots. So you got to put it together and let's see what we think.
Yeah, I want to get your opinion as well because I'd love to hear your thoughts. On these battles. We're going to talk about the teams that aren't set on their quarterback number one. They may have a pretty good idea. Some fans may think they know, but we're gonna pick our choices on who will be the opening day starter. And I think you've got to start with the most talked about battle, at least in my opinion, that's the Patriots and who's going to win that up in New England. I mean, we got Cam Newton, we got Mac Jones, you got Brian Hoyer, you got Jared Stidham. There's four guys, but really I think it comes down to two. I think they pretty much know what they've got with Brian Hoyer. I think they know what they've got with Stidham. I don't see either one of those guys starting at the beginning of the season. And honestly, I don't really see Mac Jones being ready either. I think Cam's going to win this job, and I think he's going to play until he proves that he can't do it. And I think the leash will be pretty short. If they go 2-2 and in the first four games, I think you may start hearing people looking for the switch. But I think he's going to start and be the quarterback day one. I don't know about you.
First of all, memo to Jared Stidham: start working on your broadcasting career.
Yeah, he's probably going to be the odd man out. Honestly, I don't see him making this roster. There's no way
You saw what Belichick thought of him 2 years ago when the Patriots were pounding the Jets. He put Brady on the bench, sit him through one pick six, and never saw the field again. I mean, that would be – they were winning that game no matter what. If he thought anything of them, then Jared Stidham would have still been out there. And, we know Mac Jones wouldn't be in the conversation. I think that it's Cam's game. It's Cam's job to win. But I agree with you totally. There's going to be a short leash. I don't think that Belichick saw the good and the bad Cam last year. And he started out playing pretty well, especially up in Seattle in that loss. But then things went south. But again, like you'll point out, is he didn't have a team around him. Now he has some talent around him. What he can do with it. Any way you look at it, he's the better bet for the Patriots and Belichick right now because Buffalo's not coming back to them. They want to make sure they're better than the Jets, and they got to find a way to be better than the Dolphins again, which they weren't this past year. So I think Cam's experience, the way that Belichick and Josh McDaniel will have a way to utilize him and maybe start teaching him to stay in the pocket a little bit more so he doesn't get beat up because he has been beat up so much. So, yeah, I think it's Cam's to lose.
Well, I mean, it wasn't pretty at times last year. I mean, it wasn't. But let's be honest. I mean, a lot of the times where it didn't look good was after Julian Edelman was gone, after a lot of their so-called talent was injured and off the roster, and they didn't have a ton of talent going in. That offense was not lined up for success to begin the year, and they were very thin. And as soon as the injuries happened, production went south.
The thing that everybody forgets, and it comes in people that never worry about, every once in a while during a season, in fact, there may be 20 to maybe even 30 occasions, the quarterback needs a wide receiver to bail him out. He throws up a 50-50 ball. He throws up a less than stellar pass. He needs that wide receiver to go save his butt so it's not intercepted. You know what I mean? And it happens for all these quarterbacks. It's not just, the quarterbacks that we know that are error prone and everything else. I've seen every quarterback from late Johnny Unitas through down. And every once in a while, they need their wide receivers to bail them out. So if Cam had better wide receivers last year, he might have gotten bailed out a few more times. We don't know.
Well, not only bailed out, but they have to get open. I mean, there was nobody open. They had no tight ends. They had, running back depth was getting to the nitty gritty by the end of the season after Sony Michel was banged up, and then Damian Harris got banged up, and James White was hurt. I mean, there wasn't much help from the backfield, and then they had no tight ends, and the receivers were awful. So I'm not sure what you really wanted Cam to do. I mean, let's be honest. N'Keal Harry's a bust. I mean, I'm sorry. I know they're trying to give him one more shot and let him try and make this team again and prove himself. But the guy's done nothing since he's been drafted in the first round by the Patriots, and I think it's time to move on.
Probably is. All right, who next?
Next, we're going to talk, maybe not one of the most prestigious QB1 battles, but nonetheless, I think that Chico has proven that he's willing to put the hot hand out there. So I know they're paying Fitzpatrick the most money. He's going to probably get the opportunity to begin with, but if he starts throwing interceptions, I'm not. I don't think it's beyond Chico's coaching acumen to pull him and put one of these other guys in. He's rolled with Kyle Allen before. He's kind of coming off injury, so that's why I don't think he's going to be there, pushing him in camp. But they've also got Tyler Heineke, who played pretty well in the playoffs. That being said, they're definitely going to roll with Fitz to start the season, in my opinion, and see how he does. If he plays like he did last year for the Dolphins, I think he'll be the quarterback all year long. But we'll see. If he struggles, I don't think they'll hesitate to pull him out. Hell, they pulled out Haskins after 4 games and sent him packing. So I could see that happening again.
Personally, I think this is a boom or bust thing with Fitzpatrick. I don't think either Tyler or Kyle Allen can handle it behind him. Taylor or Kyle can handle it behind him. Heineke, I mean, both of them have shown that at best, there's stopgaps, and especially Kyle Allen after his initial success, where he would go like 6 games without an interception. Carolina was winning, and then all of a sudden, people start looking at the tape and seeing things he can't do, which is a lot. And I mean, I think that the Redskins blew a chance in this draft to pick up one of those guys out there, those questionable college guys you and I talked about, giving a shot to, for lack of a better choice, Sam Ellinger, Kellen Mond, any of those guys to bring in and be behind Fitzpatrick as your quarterback of the future, and somebody who I think I'd feel a lot better about if Fitzpatrick fails, because if nothing else, I'm jump starting my future already. And those guys I think are much more talented than what they got behind him right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think they liked what they saw in Taylor Heineke. I mean, let's be honest, the guy played pretty stellar against Tom Brady in that playoff game. I mean, can he be the guy for a full season? I haven't seen that yet, but I have to admit I was impressed with him. Not drafting somebody, I think, kind of shows what they think of him. I think it shows that they like him. I think it also shows their confidence in Ryan Fitzpatrick. They would have drafted somebody or signed one of these young guys if they thought, either one of those dudes weren't solid. So we'll see what happens. But I think it's Fitzpatrick's team, and I think he'll be the starter day one, in my opinion.
Oh, he's definitely needs the starter. There's no two ways about it, unless some kind of a catastrophic injury happens in practice, because he's not going to see the field during preseason.
Probably not much. I mean, I think Heineke will probably get most of the snaps. Kyle Allen's still coming off an injury, so we're going to get a pretty good look at Taylor leading up through preseason and going into week 1. So we'll see how he does. He's coming off a little bit of surgery as well, as he got hurt in that playoff game and kept playing. So hopefully that doesn't set it back too much. But this is where it gets a little bit harder. The next team that we're going to discuss, it then becomes a little more difficult. First off, I'm talking about the Texans here. Obviously, Deshaun Watson is the best quarterback on this roster. He's hands down the starter unless he's not able to play. And it's looking more and more with these lawsuits not being settled, these lawsuits not going away. I have a hard time believing that there's not going to be some sort of disciplinary action set forth by Professor Goodell. He's got to be suspended, in my opinion. And then that leads to be the question of who is the day one starter. Do you roll out there with Tyrod Taylor? Do you go with the rookie and Davis Mills, or do you roll with the guy you just signed in Jeff Driscoll? I think Tyrod's your guy, but Tyrod, God help him, I love the dude, but he usually lasts about 2 weeks before he goes down. So whether it's a needle puncturing his lung, or whether it's a shot he takes running out of bounds, I don't know, but he usually doesn't last very long. And after that, like I said, you got Jeff Driscoll and Davis Mills. So hopefully for the Texans, the suspension's not more than 8 games.
Well, the thing about it is 2 things. First of all, I think Goodell is totally wrong in not coming down. And Ben Roethlisberger was not convicted of anything but was suspended. Okay, he invokes this for the good of the league clause whenever he wants to. If you're gonna do it now, so these guys can make plans. Because it's unfair. You have a rookie coach there who already was rated today as the worst coach in the NFL by USA Today. Okay, so you got a coach who already is rated bad. For you talk about caring about fans, you talk about caring about the sport. Everybody loves Deshaun Watson. Is disappointed if he turns out to be guilty. Disappointed that he got himself in this. But for the fans of the NFL, for everything that you're trying to create, make a ruling now. Don't even let him come to camp. If you think you're going to suspend him, don't let him come to camp. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, my whole thing is that they've shown a pretty tough stance on domestic violence cases or something with a sexual assault associated with it. It's been pretty consistent over the past few years. But it seems to me, in my opinion, which is an unbiased opinion because I don't really care either way, but it seems to me like they're coddling one of their big names. And, if this was a guy who was a backup, second-year player that hadn't proved himself, hadn't done anything, and he had 22 charges or lawsuits against him for sexual assault, he'd be suspended immediately and not allowed at the team facility. But because this guy is a $175 million man, they're waiting for the smoke to clear, which I think is very interesting.
Well, yeah, I know, but I mean, you got to see, this is where it gets confusing because when Roethlisberger got suspended, he was as big a star as there was in the sport himself as a quarterback in the NFL. And I mean, I don't want to say it's racially motivated because they have punished stars of every race when it comes to this. You're right. It is weird why they're not doing something or coming out and maybe his lawyer has made a convincing case to say, this is a case where people are banding together, and it's to make this guy look bad somehow. I don't know, but there's something strange. And like I said, for the good of the NFL, if he's going to be suspended, they should do it now. As far as what's left over, I've seen Driscoll win a game. I've seen Tyrod Taylor win a game. They're not the answer. And Davis Mills, it's too early for him to go in there. So, yeah, if it looks like it's not going to be Deshaun, it's whoever plays better in the preseason, Driscoll or Tyrod. It wouldn't be. I wouldn't be shocked if it was either of them.
No, me neither. But I have seen some decent things from Jeff Driscoll. He played pretty well for the Lions till he got injured. He played pretty well for the Bengals till he got injured. His only big issues, he keeps getting hurt.
I've been a Driscoll fan. I remember, when he was at Florida and until he broke his leg, he looked like he was going to be one of the better quarterbacks in the SEC. And then he lost his job when he came back and had to end up and go to Louisiana Tech. I give the kid credit. I've always been a fan of Jeff Driscoll ever since he was down in high school in Florida. Coming up, I thought he was going to be, he was supposed to be the guy who took over for Tebow and was the next great Gator quarterback. Unfortunately, it didn't work out for him there.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, he's definitely talented. His only real issue is just being injured. So, if he's healthy and can pick this offense up pretty quickly, I wouldn't be shocked to see him out there day one if Deshaun is not available.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's like I said, a little bit more complicated, and it gets even more complicated now because we're going to go up the road a little bit to Denver, Colorado, and to be honest with you, I have no freaking clue who they're going to roll out there day one. You would think that they would roll out there with Drew Lock. That's who they drafted. That's who they've sat here and essentially not drafted to replace. But you say that thinking if they were so confident in him, why the hell did they go trade for Teddy Bridgewater? So I really do think this is the one honest to goodness, true blue competition. Whoever shows the most poise, the best understanding of the offense. Whoever is most successful throwing the ball around in scrimmages, practices, preseason games, I think is going to be the starter day one. And honestly, I hate to say this because I kind of like the kid, but I can see Teddy Bridgewater winning this job. I think that's why he went there. I think he felt like they were going to start Sam Darnold over him in Carolina. And I think the people in Denver told him he'd have a really good shot to start the season. And I've seen enough from him to think if he's healthy, he could win that job.
I agree with you totally, maybe for different reasons. I'm trying to think with my head, not my heart, about this. But I really like Teddy Bridgewater as a person. I feel sorry for him for what he went through in Minnesota. I think one of the biggest mistakes the Jets ever made was letting him go early and pitting all their hopes on Sam Darnold that first year. I think they should have started the year with Teddy Bridgewater. Teddy Bridgewater might have turned out to be the better answer for the Jets eventually. But we all knew that they were going to turn over to Sam at some point. But when they let him go, now all the warts of Sam Darnold came out, and it just made it easier to see that he's this mistake-prone quarterback of all time. And I just think totally right when you talk about going to Denver. Drew Lock showed to be a little bit immature around that COVID thing. He was a solid quarterback at Missouri. I just think that it's Teddy's game, Teddy's job to win. They wouldn't have gone out to get him if they really believed in Drew Lock. The one thing you got to worry about is Aaron Rodgers coming in and spoiling everybody's party in that town.
Yeah, we'll get into that for sure. I just think that I think Teddy would have stayed put if he didn't think he'd have the chance to start there. I think they, I honestly think he believed what they told him, which was, this is a battle, and whoever is the better quarterback will be the starter. I mean, they don't have a ton of money invested in Drew Lock right now. He's, I know he was drafted fairly high, but you're under the rookie wage scale, so they don't have $100 million in Drew Lock yet. Teddy Bridgewater's making about the same amount of money per year, to be honest. So I think it is an open competition, and this team has weapons. It's not like Carolina last year, minus McCaffrey. You've got Melvin Gordon, you've got Javonte Williams, you've got Royce Freeman, you've got Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler, Noah Fant. We could go on and on. There's weapons on this team, and if the offensive line can hold it together, one of these guys can be successful, and I think Teddy's got the best chance.
Well, Teddy showed in Minnesota before he ruined his knee, he was on his way. Then he goes to New Orleans, and when Drew Brees is out, he's able to keep them on track for a few weeks. And then last year, he did a comparable job, not a great job, but a comparable job, like you said, in a situation that wasn't perfect in Carolina. He wasn't surrounded by talent. His number one option was gone. So I totally agree with you that Teddy Bridgewater right now on the surface and underneath looks like the best choice if Denver wants to compete, especially in that division where the Chargers are going to be tough, the Chiefs are going to be tough, and the Raiders are going to be tough. So they can't afford to be flitting around giving away some victories that they could maybe put in their back pocket, waiting for Drew Lock to grow up.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's going to get every opportunity to start. I think they'll let Drew Lock take just as many snaps. I think they'll split it probably, honestly, about 60-40 in Drew Lock's favor, just because he's the incumbent and he's the guy that's been there. But, I haven't seen enough from him to think that he's that much better than Teddy. So we'll see what happens there. But the next one, will probably be the second most watched battle, if not the first. And this is one that me and you will probably differ on. But I honestly see Jameis being the starter here. I do in New Orleans for the Saints. I think that if they didn't like him, I think he'd be gone. I think they would have gotten rid of his ass. If they thought he was lazy, if they thought that he had no talent. I mean, this guy has talent. There's no doubt about it.
Jeff George.
He's actually done something in the league, and we'll see what happens. We'll see if he's corrected the things that he struggled with. But at times, this guy's been effective, and I think with this team around him and with this coaching staff, I think he's set up for success. And I think that they'd be dumb to play Taysom Hill. I mean, he's limited. He doesn't have the same type of arm that Jameis does. He can't make all the throws that Jameis can. It was proven last year. And so keep him out there doing what he does and make him somebody that Jameis can use, because he's definitely their best shot, in my opinion.
Well, we're going to agree on part of this and disagree on other part of it. I think you're right that Jameis Winston is going to be given every chance to win this job and will probably go into the season as the number one guy. I think he'll be a total abject failure. I think he doesn't have any interest in football. I think Jameis Winston just likes being a star. I don't think he wants to do anything, doesn't want to do any of the extra stuff that you need to do. And I think that this is one time where the coach's ego is overwhelming what should be his judgment. But I mean, right now, he doesn't have a better option on his roster, because, like you said, Taysom Hill is a 3 or 4 game solution. He's not a solution over a 17-game season. But what you're going to find with Jameis Winston is, like Sam Darnold, like these other guys, he was a product of a great college program, and he's mistake prone. And he's not
how good has Florida State been since he left?
How many days? Okay, how good has Miami been since Bernie Kosar left? I mean,
they've had some really good teams since Bernie Kosar left.
Well, okay, how about since
Florida State struggled to get to the game and win it, before Jameis got there, since Charlie Ward left, and then haven't done anything since he left. This guy,
their coach left right with him, right?
This guy is not Sam Darnold, man. I mean, Sam Darnold couldn't win the Pac-12. This guy won his conference. This guy won the national championship. He's had some of the similar mistakes that Sam Darnold does as far as throwing interceptions, but he's also thrown touchdowns, which Sam has not. So I don't think those two guys are similar in any way, but we'll see. Somebody like Sam Darnold, because he keeps getting jobs, and he will be the starter in Carolina, which is another topic for another day.
Amazing. Yeah, it does amaze me. Well, like I said, there are those quarterbacks, and I use Jeff George as my ultimate example of it, and I put Jameis Winston and I put Sam Darnold in the same block. And every coach looks and says, Vinny Testaverde was a lot like that. And a few times when Bill Parcells got Vinny Testaverde and told him, don't try and read defenses. Follow what we tell you to do. If the guy's not open, throw it away, for God's sake, Vinny. Because when you start thinking, you can't get anything done. And I'm sorry. These guys, they look at that talent. They look at that arm. They look at the fact that they can move around a little bit. They look at the athleticism. They say, oh, my God, I can make it work. And you know what? It doesn't work, because somehow there's something missing in that. There's something there. There's a reason why you take an unathletic Tom Brady, and he's one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, and then you see Jeff George through one of the most ungodly, he was blessed with one of the most God-forsaken gifts of an arm. He could throw a 20-yard out on a dime, but he hit the defensive back in the chest instead of hitting his wide receiver. I mean, I can't explain it. I wish I could explain it. But I've watched so many of these quarterbacks, you sit there and go, oh, he's going to be great. And all of a sudden you go, no. And maybe it's desire. Maybe it's getting into the film room. Maybe it's whatever. But I don't.
Yeah, but Jeff George is not even close to Jameis Winston, dude. Jeff George didn't win a national championship at Purdue or Illinois, either of the two that he went to. In fact, he was pretty pedestrian, honestly. I mean, the guy had a good arm, but he was overrated. from the day one, and why people keep giving him a job is right along the same lines of why Sam Darnold is now going to be the starter again when he's never done anything. But, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I mean, it's going to be interesting, but I definitely think that, Coach Payton knows more about football than me or you combined. And he seems to be pretty comfortable with him back there. We'll see what happens. I know he's got the talent. I've seen him do it. He's proven he can do it. The question is, can he do it for 17 games, and win playoff games in the NFL? That's
and remember the other thing. He's going to have to outperform Brady and Matt Ryan in that division.
I understand that. I didn't say they were going to win the championship. I said he was going to be the starter on day one.
Okay. Who's next?
Well, honestly, there's a couple others that we could talk about. We're about up against it, but the only main one that I'm interested in is the Bears, and that's
Bears. I was waiting for the Bears.
They keep talking about how Andy Dalton is their starter. People keep telling me how great Andy Dalton is, and I'm telling you that Andy Dalton is not great. And God love him. He did have some pretty good seasons in Cincinnati, and I'll give him credit for that. But that was a while ago. They moved on from him for a reason. I think you saw that reason last year when he was forced on the field in Dallas. Don't get me wrong. They were missing guys up front. But he still had plenty of weapons to go to and struggled with decision-making and getting the ball out of his hand. So I don't see any reason why you have to play Andy Dalton if Justin Fields is ready. I think that you would, like to start Andy Dalton if the season were to begin today. But, we'll see what happens. We'll see how well Justin plays. We'll see how well he picks up the offense. I just don't think he's going to be the starter for long. He may be the starter day one, probably will be, but I think by week 6 the change will be made.
It really is funny that when you think about teams that are misrun, the Bears never get put up there, and they are pretty well misrun. I mean, they go out and they get Nick Foles. They go out and they draft Mitch Trubisky. Then they go out and get Nick Foles, former Super Bowl hero, to come in and be the answer if Trubisky can. If not, he's going to push Trubisky, get better. That doesn't happen. So now you go out and you get Andy Dalton, who, like you said, his best years were about 5 years ago in Cincinnati. But you think you can come up and he can become a reclamation project. And then you go out and get your quarterback of the future, and you're going to spend time with a former NFL or MVP of the Super Bowl and a guy who is on his last legs instead of going for your quarterback of the future now and just figuring, okay, if I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. If this is all coach speak, we haven't even got to camp yet. And by the middle of the camp, he goes, Justin Fields, we're going to start the season with him, or something along those lines, saying, it's going to be Justin's team eventually. Whatever, however he wants to treat it, fine. But it looks totally stupid because it's almost you got three. You can divide this into 3 quarterback factions. I mean, Foles has been there long enough to make some friends on the team. Andy Dalton's come in. He's well known throughout the league. If you're a Khalil Mack or one of these guys on defense, you might think that Andy Dalton gives you your best chance to win right away, not knowing Justin Fields yet. You might think the veteran quarterback could maybe steal a couple of victories for you. And then you got Justin Fields, who's going to win people over when he gets to camp because he's a great leader and a good person and, those things. So I think it's kind of a weird situation there. I really think it's going to be Justin Fields by the time camp is over with. I think it's just because it makes no sense to hold off for anybody else unless he really is having a bad camp.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, they seem I don't know why, but they seem like they're somewhat married to Andy Dalton, which I don't get because he hasn't been there any longer than Justin Fields has. I mean, I understand that he's got a history with the offensive coordinator who may or may not be calling the plays. But that was a long time ago. And let's be honest, the Red Rocket was not real impressive last year. So if they want to win, and I have a feeling that they're wanting to win right now, this defense is ready to go. Put out there who's best. And if that's what you're trying to do, then they don't know who's best yet. And this is all coach speak, which is what I'm hoping.
Yeah, and I just think it's a lot of trying to save face because, if you that's one of those can't win answers. You sit there and you go, guy goes, well, what do you think of Justin Fields' chance to start the season? If you don't say Andy Dalton is your quarterback, then they go, well, why did you ever go out and get Andy Dalton when you knew you were going to look for your number one guy? You had Nick Foles on your bench. At the time, so you had a veteran there already. If it doesn't work out, you could bring in somebody to back Nick Foles up. Is Andy Dalton that much an upgrade over Nick Foles at this time of his career? Probably not.
I don't think so. And I think if anyone knows the offense better, it's Nick Foles, who has been there.
Right. So if he doesn't say that, I think it's kind of a save face kind of thing. I don't think I think he knows he's in an impossible place to say, and I think he's hoping against hope that Justin Fields just checks all the boxes in camp, and then there's nothing. They hit the ground running and they don't look back.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes, but I think that'll be an interesting one to watch, and I definitely think it is a competition. And will it be a 3-man competition to see? I don't understand why they keep saying that Andy Dalton is our starter. Why is Nick Foles not in the mix? I mean,
yeah, if I was Nick Foles, I'd be a little. I would be. If I was Nick Foles, I would sit there and I would be looking for a way out of town unless I've totally given up on my career and figured out that I'm just going to collect my check. Because if you look at it, if Andy Dalton is the real prohibitive number one, then the prohibitive number two is going to be Justin Fields because he's going to be the quarterback in waiting. So therefore, you're odd man out number 3. I mean, if I was Nick Foles, I'd be saying, why don't you send me to Carolina, someplace I can compete? Send me go back up for the Giants. You know what I mean? Go back up for Philly. Do something. Go back to where Philly. I mean, he comes from Philly. Try and send me back to Philly where I can at least be a backup, and maybe if Jalen Hurts or Danny Dimes doesn't make it, I can step in. They'll look for a veteran quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, they've already got Joe Flacco in Philadelphia, so I don't see them signing another veteran. But you would think he'd want out of there if they're not going to give him a chance. I felt like he played, as well as possibly done on that team last year.
Stay in that division. Go up to Detroit. You got to be able to beat out Boyle and be Goff's backup. And man, you're just a turn of an ankle away from being on the field with Goff.
One would think.
I mean, I don't understand why. Like I said, with Foles, maybe he's been beaten and down by the NFL and he figured it out and he says, "Look, I've had my shots and I'm gonna, start working on my second career. Not to worry about it."
We'll see, but yeah. I would assume that they would. I can't see them keeping all 3 of those guys.
No.
Into the season. I don't. I mean, they may try and keep them all through camp to make sure somebody's healthy, that they've got 2 healthy. I don't know, but I just have a hard time believing that they're going to put Foles on the practice squad. I just don't think that'll happen.
Who's backing up Wilson up in Seattle now?
They kept the Geno, same guy that's been doing it.
I mean, if I'm Foles, there's a place I look to go. Back him up. You know what I mean? I'd like to get, if I'm Foles, I'm trying to get out of that town.
Well, there's definitely options for him if he's released. That's going to be the first thing. If he needs to get them to be honest with him. If they're not going to give him a chance, they need to get him to release him because that's the only chance he's got of going somewhere else.
That's for sure. Okay, well, we got the basketball coming up. We got the hockey coming up tonight. Anything else to touch on?
No, I'm looking forward to it. My prediction is they're going to close it out. I don't see them. I don't see the Clippers. They look pretty exhausted at the end of the last one. So yeah, I think it's going to be it. And
I just think it'd be great for Chris Paul to get his day. Like I said, it it'd be interesting. And you know, it's funny how people are saying that, you know, that no one's paying attention. I find more and more people paying attention to these finals or this NBA playoffs this year. So hopefully it's you know, next year maybe Zion makes it. Maybe a couple of it was good to have the New York teams in again. Boston's it was in. Both LA teams were in. Maybe if you get, you know, a young Zion in there to stir some interest, maybe it'll get even better next year.
Could be. The future's looking pretty bright. They got a lot of superstars right now, and it's been exciting basketball. I've enjoyed watching it, and the ratings have been pretty good. So people saying that no one watches the NBA anymore, well, somebody's watching because these ratings have been pretty dang solid.
Yeah, everybody says no one watches what I don't watch.
Yeah, exactly.
How would you know? You're not watching it.
Well,
all right.
Somebody's watching.
We're going to say goodnight for tonight, and we will be back on Thursday. Next Monday, we will be off because it's 4th of July.
Yes, sir. Happy 4th to everybody. Be safe. We'll talk to you on Thursday before we hit the holiday.
You got it. Have a good night, my friend. I will talk to you on Thursday.
All right, buddy. Thank you.
You're listening to The Safety and the Sportswriter on Northeast Streaming Sports.